Welcome back to American Catechism for episode number 72 by Stab the Dragon Productions, coming to you from Fort Worth, Texas on Tuesday, August 4th, 2026, to celebrate the birthday of the United States Coast Guard. We'll celebrate this occasion by studying St. Augustine, Florida Straight Bourbon. Just the facts. This is a straight bourbon out of St. Augustine Distillery in Florida, weighing in at 88 proof. So that costs $50 on the website. It's unavailable in retail stores locally here in Fort Worth, so you have to pay the $20 shipping. Tasting notes: caramel corn, wood char, tobacco, leather. I gave it a score of 87 and a letter grade for drinkability, A-. My recommendation: I think this is a very good and flexible bourbon. It's got some deeper notes as well as a lot of sweetness, and it does have a pleasant burn that is a little bit more than mouth tingles for 88 proof. History of the United States Coast Guard. As we celebrate the Coast Guard today, it is one of the 6 branches of the U.S. Armed Forces, and their birthday is August 4th of 1790. President George Washington signed the act passed by Congress establishing the United States Revenue Marine and authorized 10 cutters to be constructed or purchased. Now, this makes the Coast Guard, technically speaking, the oldest of all the branches of the United States military. But wait a minute. The USMC, the Marines, they claim to be the oldest military service, with a beginning date of November 10th, 1775, which they celebrate every year. So how do we say the Coast Guard is older? Well, in 1775, we were not yet the United States with a voted-on Constitution. So, under the constitutional government and the title of the United States of America, the Coast Guard is the oldest service. So, I don't know, maybe that's stretching the truth a little bit, but the Coasties got to claim something cool there, so why not? So, the first armed forces, then, the Coast Guard, worked for the Treasury Department, and their job? To collect taxes. The young United States was in debt up to their eyebrows, and they needed money. So that's what the Revenue Marine was to do. And so they built or purchased these 10 cutters. The cutters were a type of small, fast ship that the British Royal Navy used. And so they wanted a similar thing for a similar purpose, right? And so a lot of Coast Guard ships today are still called Coast Guard cutters. So it's kind of a traditional thing. Churches exist on donations and tithes. Businesses exist on profits and investments. Governments exist on taxes. So the Revenue Marine, there you go. Now, a few weeks ago on this channel, last year actually, I discussed the Whiskey Rebellion. So that was a year ago, last summer, I guess. And so the Whiskey Rebellion was an actual war where Washington led the army to collect taxes because there was a rebellion going on in Pennsylvania. So, that was in 1793-94. So what that tells you is that the collecting of taxes sometimes relies on the force of arms. And that should throw a caution to you about wanting government programs, because government programs depend on taxes, and taxes ultimately come at the barrel of a gun, or in the Coast Guard, the barrel of a cannon, I guess. But, that's how governments have always operated. We're a fallen, sinful people, and government is to restrain sin and evil, and taxes support government. So there it is. Now, here recently, the Coast Guard has gotten a lot of press in the second Trump term for chasing down drug boats from Venezuela and Mexico in both the Caribbean and the Pacific. And that became a point of controversy, but it really shouldn't. They are defending our shores. If you don't recognize that there's a war on drugs, and drugs cause harm in America, well, you've got to defend the people. So the Coast Guard is doing a good job there. Now, the Coast Guard is the second smallest military service in America. It's only larger than the Space Force, which has about 10,000, and the Coast Guard's got about 44,000. So it's about a quarter the size of the next largest armed force. That's the Marine Corps. So when you look at all the territory that they have to cover, all the jobs that they do, in my humble opinion, the Coast Guard ought to be about twice the size they are. The Coasties are awesome. So happy birthday to the Coast Guard. Cheers. All right, let's look now to the whiskey, which has no official relationship with the Coast Guard. I chose St. Augustine Distillery because St. Augustine, Florida is a nice historical town, city in North America. It is the longest continuously occupied city in the continental United States. And so Florida's got lots of Coast Guard presence, obviously. So that's why I chose this whiskey. All right. This whiskey was established in 2012 when Mike Diaz and Philip McDaniel built their distillery out of an old ice plant, and they opened for business in 2014. Family owned and locally operated. So, that's what I like to hear with craft distilleries. Now, St. Augustine, the city was founded on the day of the Feast of St. Augustine by the Spanish Admiral Pedro Menendez Aviles. Okay, so 5 out of 5 points for history of St. Augustine bourbon, straight bourbon, Florida straight bourbon. Bottle, label, and marketing. This bottle is a very nice bottle. I think it's round. It's got a base down here at the bottom that's a little bit thicker. And the sides, I think, gently flare up. It's not a dramatic flare, but they gently flare up. You've got clear glass. It's kind of a cut shape there on the shoulders, which is pretty cool. And medium length neck, and I really like that copper on the neck. I mean, that's awesome. The label is really, I think, pretty cool. So it's got gold and black with white lettering. That's kind of a dramatic, well, I say gold, copper. Okay, let's go with copper, because the neck's copper, it matches the neck. And on the label, I mean, it gives you the mash bill on the label. I'll get to that here in a little bit, but this is a fantastic label. On the back side of the label, barrel type. Man, it even has the barrel type. Okay, I'll read that later. Rooted in over a decade of distilling experience, our Florida Straight Bourbon captures the spirit of where it's made. Bold, warm, and full of character. This small batch blend of 60 barrels is rich with notes of toffee, cocoa, and spice. Bottled at 88 proof, it's easygoing in a cocktail and confident on its own. Yeah, man, I didn't realize that they had. There's some extra stuff on the back. I'll get to that in just a minute. All right, so any marketing? No, I've not seen any marketing for this. I'm sure there's probably some reviews out there, but I didn't check any reviews. I think I saw this for sale. I think it was either Alabama or Georgia, in a liquor store we went to there in the spring. And I debated getting it then, and I ended up not getting it. But so it's not here in Fort Worth, but there's marketing for it in the Southeast. Total Wine, I know, carries it there in the Southeast. All right, so 5 out of 5 for bottle, label, and marketing. Appearance of this whiskey. In the bottle, you can see that's a pretty dark copper with red tinges. I mean, that's actually nice and dark. here in the glass. I mean, this is a 4 on my 1 through 5 scale. That's a 4 out of 5. Composition. Here's where it gets interesting. On the label, they tell you 60% corn, 22% malted barley, 18% wheat. And then on the back, I don't think I've ever seen a whiskey include this. Barrel type, Minnesota oak. Really? That's fascinating. Months yarded, 36. Char level 3. Now, months yarded, to tell you the truth, I'm not sure exactly what that means. Does that mean they aged the barrel before filling it with whiskey for 36 months? Or does that mean the whiskey's aged for 36 months? Probably that. And which is fine, because if you're going to do a straight bourbon that's less than 4, then you got to put the years on there. So I think that's what that means. Okay, it's 36 months aged. But they used a term I've never seen before. 36 months yarded. But just for clarity alone, I mean, this is, that's fascinating. That's great. So composition, I originally gave that a 14 out of 15, but I'm going to change that. This is exceptionally clear. I'm going to say 15 out of 15 for composition, and that's going to boost the score up to an 88. So I'm going to do that right now, because for some reason I had missed that barrel information when I first went through this. So that's really excellent. All right, let's nose this whiskey. I like it when whiskeys put the elevation that they have aged their whiskey at. But this is St. Augustine, so sea level. There you go. Recently, I've reviewed 10th Mountain Rye, Stranahan Single Malt. Those are mountain whiskeys from Colorado. And both those bottles have the elevation on there. And this has got an amazing nose. Okay, caramel popcorn, but I'm getting charred oak, tobacco, cocoa. Yeah, this is the cocoa surprised me. I read that on the website a while ago and didn't think about it, because that's not what I smelled the other day when I smelled this. But maybe it's the power of suggestion. I'm not sure, but right now I'm getting cocoa. And so I'm going to give it one more point on the nose. And that's pretty rare for me, because my nose is terrible. But I'd given this an 8, and now it's a 9. So yeah, actual cocoa. Wow. All right, taste. Caramel corn, wood, char, tobacco, leather. I think I'm getting some cocoa too. Yeah. Okay. This is, see, yesterday when I was previewing this, there was a neck pour. And I should know better than do the preview with a neck pour. I just shouldn't do that. So today I'm getting more flavors, so I'm adding a point again. So this is boosting it up to a 90. So I've added 3 points just going through this review a second time. And the composition, the nose, and now the taste. So yeah, this is really pretty good. All right, so that's a That's going up to a 22 out of 25. I had it as a 21. Mouthfeel, burn, and finish. It's got a decent mouthfeel. Not exactly creamy, but certainly not thin. I'm going to say full-bodied. The proof is only 88, but I'm saying the burn is just above that level in a nice way. This is more than mouth tingles. And so for 88, it's got a solid burn, which I like. All right. The finish keeps the burn going for a while. And the sweet caramel, the cocoa, tobacco flavors, the wood char, all of that continues on. Maybe just a bit tannic on the end, but I don't mind that. I kind of like that. So 13 out of 15 for mouthfeel, burn, and finish. Versatility, flexibility. Okay, I love drinking whiskey neat. But here, this 88 proof, I think it's got the potential to survive ice if you must. I made an old fashioned yesterday using this, and it was very nice. I made it in a way to try to tamp down on the sweetness a bit. So I used a turbinado sugar cube, Angostura bitters, and 3 or 4 doses of black walnut bitters. I mean, I had a cherry with a bit of the juice and an orange slice, and it was an awesome old fashioned. I may have overdone the bitters just a tad, but it did tamp down on the sweetness note a little bit. I'm going to do another old fashioned right now and come right back. But those cocoa notes are coming out this time, so I'm going to try something a little bit different. Hold on. And I'm back. I've made an old fashioned. I've got my Coast Guard glass going on there. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's got the Coast Guard stuff on there. All right, this old fashioned, I used Angostura bitters and Aztec chocolate bitters, turbinado sugar cube, 1 cherry, and a couple of little orange slices. So I wanted to try to magnify the cocoa I was getting in there, and this absolutely works. Oh yeah. Okay. St. Augustine, Florida Straight Bourbon. Old fashioned. That's awesome. So for versatility, flexibility, 5 out of 5. Price, value, and availability. This bourbon is not available in my area, so I had to order it online for $50, and then you got to add the $20 shipping. Well, the order cost was $50, and the $20 shipping is added. And there's probably some taxes in there too. So that's bad for us. But I do know that I saw this on my vacation in Georgia, Alabama in March. So if you're in the Southeast, I would say you can probably obtain this pretty easily. So 7 out of 10 for price, value, and availability. Bonus points. This is a very good bourbon from a family-owned distillery in a locally historic building doing things the right way. 5 out of 5. Giving me a total score of now 90. I mean, I had upped that from an 87 to a 90. Letter grade for drinkability. And again, I think I'm going to up that from an A minus to a solid A. This is, I should know better than to evaluate a whiskey on a neck pour. So here I am, second day, and this is, interestingly better. So yeah, solid A. Analysis and recommendation. This whiskey is a good, solid local story, family owned, a cool, locally historic building, quite good bourbon, very flexible. I think the price is reasonable if you can get it in the store. I mean, You had to really want it to pay that $20 shipping. So there you go. Excellent, neat, makes a great old fashioned. This is really good stuff here. All right, that does it for the Coast Guard. Happy birthday. Cheers to the Coast Guard. And for St. Augustine, Florida Straight Bourbon. So coming up next, I think we're going to return to my rye channel, Texas Rye Whiskey Studies, to continue the tournament, the National Rye Tournament. This is American Catechism out here.